Hello friends, it's your girl Alina back for another video, and in this one we'll be diving into the 5 things you need to know all around this December 2022 full moon in the airy twin sign of Gemini. In this video, we'll talk about why this lunation will bring heightened levels of some tense, maybe even frustrating emotions thanks to the large role that Mars, which is currently in retrograde, will be playing, but how this full moon can be a powerful time for being in action, communication, and collaboration thanks to Gemini's influences. We'll talk about this full moon's top transits, and as always at the end, I'll offer some custom writing prompts. And before we dive in, I wanted to mention that the Auralign Astrology planners are actually on sale right now. We had a Black Friday sale and your girl forgot to mention it on here. So I've decided to extend it, and the sale, 20% off all planners and wall calendars, will be going on until midnight of the full moon. What's crazy is the green planners are sold out already, y'all. If you want to get yours before Christmas, before the new year starts so we can journal together, then order yours now. And real quick, for anyone who doesn't already know, the Auralign Astrology planners are my creation, and they include dedicated full and new moon ritual pages, notifications for all the top astrological events of the year, seasonal guides, writing prompts, habit trackers, and so much more. I'm just excited for y'all to not only enjoy it, but for us to enjoy it together, whether that's you giving it to a friend for the holidays or us journaling together during every lunation. So if you're interested, I've left links on the screen in the description, and be sure to order yours soon if you want to get it before Christmas. All right, with that said, why is this moon so important? So as many of y'all know, the full moon marks the midway point of the lunar cycle, where we see that the light has built all the way to its peak from the new moon. The full moon is seen as this cosmic spotlight, illuminating what has and hasn't been working for us midway through this cycle. And just as we see the moon raises the tides, so too can it raise our emotional and intuitive abilities. And this is why you see people doing full moon rituals, where they take some time out during the full moon, maybe a few days before or after, and they write out what is and isn't working for them anymore. And what they often do is they rip out the page and they burn it or destroy it. And that reminds me of a small but very special feature of the planner that I added this year, which is perforated pages on the full moon ritual page. So you can easily tear out the full moon page after you've written out what you want to let go of. Now, as many of y'all know, the moon impacts our inner world. So full moons in general are already seen as a time where our inner world can come to the surface, where we finally speak our truth, when we finally have that conversation, when we finally just let out what we might have been holding in. And with Mars playing a large role with this lunation, especially because it's in retrograde and in Gemini, which is the very communicative sign, this lunation will be one where we will likely see more outbursts, potentially more anger, frustration, and a lot of that inner world coming to the surface. And as with all full moons, we see that the moon forms an opposition aspect with the sun. So we see the moon in the sign of Gemini bringing in energetic support when it comes to collaboration, communication, deep diving, research, anything that of the air. So anything having to do with the internet and having conversations. Having this dualistic opposition aspect with the sun in Sagittarius, which is really willing and calling us to look at our lives from a more broad and philosophical perspective, thinking of things in a more long-term way. And so, as with all full moons, we're being called to strike a balance between these two dualities, between the Gemini aspect of being in the moment versus the Sagittarius of thinking long-term from a more broad perspective. Next up, let's talk the transits that impact this moon. All right, so first up, let's finally talk about this Mars still being in retrograde. So Mars entered retrograde on October 30th, and it's going to stay there until January 12th. Now, while Mars has been in retrograde for over a month now, it's really being exalted. It's really at its most influential peak at the moment. And so during this time, especially during the time of the full moon, where we're already seeing a lot of our inner world coming to the surface as the full moon brings that up, just like it raises the tides, we can likely see heightened levels of resentment, frustration, and a calling for more knee-jerk reactions rather than actually processing the information that might have triggered us. This retrograde, along with the full moon, which really brings in heightened levels of energy, can also kind of overdo it because it's working together. Full moons in general can make us feel a little bit more energized or a little bit more called to be out and about and kind of in the mix of things. But in combination with this retrograde, we can maybe feel overworked, feeling like we need to do way more than we actually physically feel like we can. And so during the time of this lunation, and this Mars retrograde, it'll be very important to set boundaries when it comes to work-life balance, when it comes to saying no or not yet or not now, when it comes to friends or people wanting to ask you out or be around you or share your energy. In general, Mars retrogrades can tend to cause confusion within these realms, not only when it comes to feeling overworked or doing too much, but also when it comes to, misinterpretations of maybe somebody being rude or passive aggressive or feeling more frustrated or sensitive to the environment that we're around. Next up, we see that the Sun opposes Mars. So as many of y'all know, when we see an opposition aspect, we're being called to strike a balance between the two energies that are on opposite sides of the spectrum at this time, that are literally opposing one another. So we see the Sun, our central star that impacts our sense of self, our ego, how we present ourselves to the world. Some might even say kind of like our mask of how we interface with the world to get what we want and to be liked. Currently in the sign of Sagittarius, having this dualistic opposition with Mars in the sign of Gemini and currently in retrograde. Now, Mars impacts our sense of action, our confidence, our assertiveness, our calling for dominance. And when in retrograde, as mentioned before, it can create some confusion within those realms of wanting that dominance or having that confidence, of misinterpreting situations or maybe having more of a knee-jerk reaction to those more frustrating situations. So overall, with this type of transit, especially with Mars being in retrograde, where there can be a higher likelihood of over-assertion or overreaction, we can feel heightened levels of energy during this full moon. And so if it resonates with you to sit back and relax and finally set those boundaries, if you're feeling overworked, then do that. But if you are feeling a higher level of energy, now can be a very powerful time to get into physical activities, whether that's sports, going for walks, or learning a new craft, and basically tunneling that energy and transmuting it into something that is productive. This type of transit is also one that really shines a light on our egos. It really puts a mirror to your face of like, whoa, okay, I was really triggered by that, or I was really sensitive to that, or I noticed what I did triggered somebody else. And how can I reflect upon the part that my ego plays a role in that situation, the part that my insecurities might have projected itself onto that situation? While these transits can be relatively challenging, ultimately they are mirrors for us. They are really shining a light on those areas of our lives where we can do more of the work in terms of the parts that our ego or insecurities might be playing a role. Because oftentimes, as some of y'all already know, when you look at the wheels of emotions, oftentimes anger, frustration, resentment, they're all rooted in sadness. They're all rooted in disappointment. They're all rooted in some level of an insecurity or a feeling of dissatisfaction or loneliness, and it's showing up as those more flaring emotions. By the way, before we wrap up these transits, if anything that I've been saying has resonated with you, be sure to like this video and subscribe, because I make videos like these for every full and new moon. Next up, let's talk ways to align with this energy. First up, with Mars playing such a big role in this lunation when it comes to potential over-assertion, overreaction, or frustrating or more hard emotions, it will be very helpful to get clear on what does and doesn't deserve your energy, what is and isn't productive to you. And what I mean by that is, with Mars being in retrograde, especially in the sign of Gemini, there can be a lot of miscommunication or even over-communication of pulling us in many different directions and wanting that energy that we have from Mars. And that can sometimes manifest as frustration if we feel like our boundaries are being crossed or we're not communicating that. And so to combat that, setting clear boundaries, understanding, especially going into the holiday season, like, you know what? I don't want these people coming to my house. Or, you know what? I don't want to do this. Or, you know what? I do want to do that. And having that rooted in protecting your energy and making sure that you actually have a good time during the holidays will be very helpful. If you're noticing that you or other people are a lot more sensitive during this time, it really doesn't hurt to just not reply yet. Take some time to process the information. And in terms of a full moon ritual, during full moon rituals, you're often taking time to get clear on what you kind of want to let go of, what hasn't been working for you midway through this lunation, but also what hasn't been working for you in terms of what you've been working on, what you've been doing over this year or this season. And so some things specifically that you can reflect upon that you might want to let go of, or diving deeper into the root of it and allowing this full moon's light to shine a light on it and give you more clarity, would be things within the realms of, I made some notes. So anger, resentment, fear of expressing ourselves, avoidance of what we might really know we need deep down. And if those don't resonate with you, because that involves the Mars retrograde, reflecting on things that of the air sign of Gemini. So reflecting on things in terms of our communication, our collaboration skills, our research abilities, our relationship with education and learning new things to improve upon ourselves. And finally, before we dive into these full moon writing prompts, I'd like to introduce a new segment to this video, which I call Collective Perspective. This is a segment where I offer a way for us to collaborate and support our communities for collective elevation. Something that's important to remember in our spiritual practices that I feel like has gotten lost in the sauce in the more new age spiritual bypassing culture that we see right now is that we are the change makers. We are the ones who are doing the deeper rooted work. That way we have deeper levels of empathy and understanding. That way we don't project any of that unresolved issues onto the world, right? Through healing ourselves, we can heal our communities, right? But oftentimes I feel like online with a lot of like newer age spiritual stuff, it's all about me, me, me. And so I think that this segment can be very helpful for reminding us that we are the change makers that set an example and that can help to impact collective elevation as well. And so with that said, a collective perspective that's most aligned with these transits is shop locally, think globally. So this is one that you might have heard before, but the idea that I present to you in this video is to shop small, especially during this holiday season. Because when you do that, you are voting with your dollar. Oftentimes, people are like, oh, voting doesn't work, but ultimately, in a capitalistic society, in our modern day, corporations and companies, many of which are the highest contributors to greenhouse gases, pollution, and a lot of the issues that we face on this planet, they ultimately listen to where you take your dollars. And when you spend money in a small business, especially during the holidays, you're not just filling the pockets of corporate overlords, you're actually creating tangible ripple effects in your community. Because with that money, the individual or the family or the small company, they take that money and they put that back into the community. They take that money and they are actually able to contribute to their family and their community in more direct ways than larger corporations can. Okay, I'm gonna get off of my soapbox, but comment down below if you like this segment because I'm really excited about it. All right, next up, let's get into these custom full moon writing prompts. What I will do is I will put the questions up on the screen, and when you see them, I invite you to pause the video and write them out. And when you're done, we'll come back. If you have your Auralign astrology planner, go ahead and flip to this month's full moon ritual page where you'll be able to write this all out. And by the way, the 2023 full and new moon ritual pages are expanded and offer way more quality prompts for you to really spark ideas. All right, let's dive in. Setting boundaries is mainly to preserve inner balance and peace. When was the last time you set a boundary? Is there anything you're ready to release during this full moon? All right, y'all, I hope that you enjoyed those writing prompts, and if any of them resonated with you, be sure to write them in the comment section below because I'd love to read it. And if you made it to the end of this video, let me know by commenting 3 of the yelling emojis. It's like a gray face outline and they're yelling because we are speaking our truth, we are speaking our boundaries, and we are communicating where we're at during this full moon. And finally, if you are someone who's interested in aligning your schedule and life with the seasons, cosmos, and lunar phases, then be sure to check out the Auralign astrology planners. We have already sold out of the green planners, the green Ivy planners. So if you are interested in getting one for as a Christmas gift, as a gift that keeps on giving throughout the entire year, or if you're trying to disconnect from the internet and sick of having to rely on notifications online or through apps for all the top astrological events and want to just be offline and align your schedule without having to check your phone, then check out the Auralign astrology planners. They are on sale for Black Friday, which has been extended to this full moon, December 7th. And with all of that said, I will leave you with my favorite quote, and that is, be gentle with yourself, because life is about the journey, not the destination. Okay, bye friends.